You know, a weighted swim bait is really a bait that in the last 8 or 10 years has really kind of came into its own, and it's kind of a neat option where you would, you know, throw a swim jig or a bladed jig or a spinnerbait. You know, this bait fits right in. The thing that I guess I would say is different about this bait compared to a bladed jig or a spinnerbait is this bait has a lot less vibration. It's a lot more subtle. It's more natural. And I like it a lot in conditions like this where I really don't have enough wind or weather to want to throw, you know, a bladed jig or a spinnerbait. I feel like that the vibration that those baits are going to make is just a little too much. That's when, to me, the weighted swim bait, you know, is going to be my first bait of choice. I mean, it's just a real simple design, but it covers that same. There's another one, got it. It covers that same shallow water that a swim jig or a spinnerbait is going to cover, but just with less vibration. You know, when I'm throwing this weighted swim bait, you know, up here around this shallow cover, I'm not really doing anything fancy. The only thing I'm paying attention to really and truly is speed. You know, you can do things with it. Like right here, I've got it gonna come through the fork of this tree, and I can kind of let it pendulum fall off the fork of that tree to try to get one to react to it if it's there. But I mean, all I'm really doing is just throwing it right at the cover and just reeling it right through it. A little bit better one. Come here. That's a chunk. Well, that's a good one. A good general setup for this, you know, when you're throwing it up there around shallow cover and you can get away with it, I'm either going to throw this bait on either 50-pound test high seas braid or 20-pound test high seas fluorocarbon. And the rod choice for me, I like a 7'3" heavy action TFO rod. That gives me a short enough rod that if I'm up tight, I can make accurate casts with it. But if I throw it way out away from my boat, that 7'3" rod gives me enough leverage. And I like a fairly moderate style reel or speed. I like a 6'3" to 1. I don't really see myself being able to fish this bait effectively on a high speed reel. I know a lot of guys like the 7s and the 8s. When I'm winding a bait, I like a 6. I feel like I fish the bait more efficiently throughout the entire course of a day on a 6'3" to 1, just because I'm not worried that I'm fishing the bait too fast. In this kind of environment, I don't see like there's any issue with throwing it on braided line. You know, I'm not using a leader or anything, just straight braid all the way to the hook. And I use a weighted hook. This is a 6/0 weighted hook, just with a twist lock in it. Having it on a hook like this, to me, allows the bait to have more freedom. It allows the bait to have more nose move with the tail kicks, and that's what you really want. You want that bait to really swim. Not all of these baits are created equal, I will tell you that. This particular swim bait is a Jackal Rhythm Wave, and when you're looking for a good swim bait, no matter whether you're putting it on a jig head or whether you're putting it on a weighted hook, when you retrieve that swim bait, look at it. If you can get the bait to where the nose of the bait has some left to right, as well as the tail, that's what you really want. That's what you really want to see. And this Rhythm Wave does that extremely well. To me, that just lets that bait look that much more natural. I don't want the bait twisted up extremely tight. You want to leave a little bit of a gap between the hook. You know, don't screw it up on there where the nose of the bait's pushed up on the eyelet of the hook. Leave a little bit of space, and then you're just gonna Texas rig it. Go straight through. You know, and if you're fishing real open water or just grass, you can leave it like this. But if I'm fishing it in wood, I'm gonna just kind of push it forward and just expose the top of it so that it'll come through that wood cover without getting hung. And I mean, all I'm doing is just fishing it like you'd fish a spinnerbait. You just throw it, you know, or a bladed jig. It's basically the same type bait, just with less vibration. You know, as far as cover goes, The way you've got this thing rigged, weedless, I mean, you can throw it in or around anything. You know, I can actually throw this in places that I couldn't throw or couldn't, you know, effectively use a bladed jig. Like you can look at this, you know, this shoreline grass, this little alligator grass right here. I could fish this down the edge of it by casting up in it a little bit and just softly pulling it out. I can fish it through it. I can't do that with a bladed jig, or I can't do that with a spinnerbait. I can do it with a swim jig. And there's one, got it. That's another good one. Come here. Well, she is mad. Come here. That's a nice one. Oh. You know, this today, it's pretty early still today. You know, these fish, I'm winding this bait fairly fast. And they're pretty aggressive right now. It's not real hard to get one to bite. And I mean, they're absolutely choking it. Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, that's not a giant fish, maybe a pound and a half, but they're a lot of fun to catch. We'll let her go. She'll be a 5-pounder one day. There's one. Come here, baby. You know, this weighted swim bait deal, it's not rocket science, but it definitely has a place where it really shines under the right conditions. You know, if you're looking for an alternative to a swim jig style bait, or even if you're looking something, you know, if you've got somebody that, or even if yourself, if you're just kind of getting into fishing and you want a relatively easy bait to fish with that's very effective, this is a great choice for something like that, you know. This is a bait I can bring anybody out here with any skill set. As long as they can cast and turn the handle and get the bait back, you can pretty much fish with this bait. This is not one of those over the top, you've got to master this, this, and this to make this technique work. This is a relatively simple technique, but it's extremely effective. You can see by the fish we've caught on it this morning. And I mean, there's nothing to it. Just get in the area where you feel like there's some fish, throw it through the cover, and just pay attention to how fast you're reeling. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I keep saying that over and over and over. But, you know, pay attention to how fast you're retrieving that bait. Because that in itself is the biggest factor, or the biggest thing that's in your control when you're fishing a technique like this, is how fast you're retrieving that bait. You know, and that's giving you your depth and your speed.